You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Sports fans, welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with Chargers-Raiders. A game that when you saw it on the docket, you may not have gotten too excited. I was kind of excited by it because I like Justin Herbert and the Raiders were fighting for a playoff spot. Now they're dead. Forget about it. There's no way they're making the playoffs now. But it was very easy for me to get into this game. What you saw yesterday is a glimpse of the future. Justin Herbert is the real deal. He is going to turn into probably a great quarterback. I don't think that's a stretch to say. He tied Mayfield's record for most touchdown passes by a rookie in NFL history. There's a chance he could have 30 touchdowns this year. He's got to get 3 more touchdown passes in the final 2 games. He can do that. He can do that very easily. That's the real story of this game. It's not Mariota, although that is an important part, and I'll get into it in a minute. It's not Darren Waller playing great. It's not Josh Jacobs having a terrible game. It is the emergence of Justin Herbert. I said it yesterday. I liked him coming out of Oregon. I really did. I didn't think he'd do this right away. I don't think anyone did. The Chargers were so convinced that he wouldn't that they started Tyrod Taylor on opening day. It bears repeating. If it wasn't for this doctor who probably flunked out of med school, nearly killed Tyrod Taylor, Herbert never gets his shot. He's left holding the clipboard. Maybe he gets a shot later in the year, but there's no way that he has this fantastic rookie season. This guy with the entire sports world watching put on a clinic. I understand bad Raiders defense. Rod Marinelli's first game as Raiders defensive coordinator. It wasn't good. But it's still impressive to see a rookie on national television have the type of game he did. He completed 2/3 of his passes for over 300 yards. He was responsible for 3 touchdowns. With this Chargers running game not being as great as it once was, Herbert put the team on his back and led him to victory. I mean, Austin Eckler only had 13 carries. He lost carries to Kalen Ballage and Josh Kelly. It's not like Eckler was bad in this game. He averaged just over 4.5 yards a carry. But it's not a good look that out of the 23 runs that Chargers running backs had, Eckler only had 13. He should have more than that. And also, the thing that Herbert's doing that's so impressive is he's making these pedestrian wide receivers look really, really good. Jalen Guyton had 4 catches for 91 yards. Tyron Johnson had 3 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams didn't play a whole hell of a lot, so Herbert was down to his 3rd and 4th receivers. They were playing on the outside. You know what? You wouldn't know that they weren't at the top of the depth chart based on how they played yesterday. It is so difficult for any quarterback. Forget rookies. Quarterbacks that have been around for 10 years to make bad wide receivers look good. Herbert's doing it in his rookie season. He's helped Hunter Henry have a really good season in advance of free agency. He had 5 catches yesterday for 65 yards and a touchdown. Let me tell you, he's in line for a big payday. If you're a Chargers fan, your head had to hit the pillow last night very comfortably. You know you have your franchise quarterback. That's just a fact. And you knocked off a division rival. Something that I didn't know. The Chargers haven't beaten a division rival since December 30th, 2018. Not only did you beat a division rival, but you basically killed their chances of making the playoffs. The Raiders are 7-7. They've got to leapfrog the Dolphins and the Ravens to get into that final wildcard spot in the AFC. Here's how bad it is for them right now. The Ravens are playing the Jaguars. The Ravens are going to destroy the Jaguars. We all know that. But let's say, by some miracle, that the Jaguars beat the Ravens. The Dolphins are facing the Patriots. I think the Dolphins are going to win that game. But let's say they don't. Let's say the Patriots win. Then the Patriots are tied with the Raiders with a 7-7 record. Regardless of how Dolphins-Patriots unfolds, the Raiders are screwed. If the Dolphins win, they have a 2-game lead on the Raiders for that final wildcard spot. If the Patriots win, the Raiders now have to worry about 3 teams. They are done. They are not making the playoffs. Overall, they're not a bad team. They have a really good offense. But my God, that defense is dreadful. Trayvon Mullen was getting cooked. You had these Chargers wide receivers wide open. You want to talk about holes in the zone? There were chasms in the zone. I mean, once you saw Derek Carr leave the game with that groin injury that looked bad right from the start, you had a sense that the Raiders just weren't going to win this game. But give Marcus Mariota credit. He came in and turned back the clock. He completed 17 of his 28 passes for 226 yards. He also had 9 carries for 88 yards. He threw a touchdown pass and he ran for a touchdown. This is why you invest in a premium backup quarterback. You don't know when you're going to need him to step in and lead your team to victory. That was a must-win game for the Raiders. And Mariota gave the Raiders every chance to win that game. I mean, you saw the game that Darren Waller had 9 catches for 150 yards and a touchdown. Granted, he was the only good pass catcher for the Raiders yesterday. But that's because Mariota gave the Raiders a new element to their offense. The ability to run. Derek Carr doesn't have the speed that Mariota does. You saw it. Whenever Mariota tucked it and ran, the Chargers linebackers just couldn't keep up with him. It was something that they weren't prepared for. They couldn't adjust to it. And it showed. Mariota nearly won that game for the Raiders. What killed him was the anemic performance by Josh Jacobs, where he averaged under 3 yards a carry. His defense not helping him out. And I'll give an honorable mention to that crazy field goal attempt at the end of regulation. The 65-yarder by Daniel Carlson. Did John Gruden forget that Sebastian Janikowski isn't his kicker anymore? Everything about that play was doomed to fail. There's no way that Carlson is going to make a 65-yarder. He doesn't have that leg. He's not Justin Tucker. He's not Matt Prater. He's not Tom Dempsey. He's not a bad kicker, but there's no way that you could expect him to make a 65-yard field goal. Why wouldn't you just have Mariota throw a Hail Mary? What's the worst that happens there? It gets intercepted? Okay. I mean, while I'm on the topic of interceptions, people got on Mariota for the interception that he threw late. Chris Harris with the nice pick and the really good return. It didn't matter at the end of the day. Michael Badgley missed that kick. He missed the 51-yarder. And he missed a 40-some-odd-yarder earlier. He's not a good kicker, Michael Badgley. The Chargers need to figure that out quickly, what they're going to do at kicker next year. I mean, you don't move on from Badgley now. That makes no sense. But if you're Tom Telesco, maybe you draft a kicker in this coming draft. But going back to the Hail Mary that should have happened, if it gets picked, okay. It's irrelevant. It's the end of the game. Incomplete pass? Again, who cares? End of the game. You don't trust Mariota to launch it into the end zone? I think he could get it there. That ball was at the 47-yard line. Mariota can throw a ball with 47 air yards to it. That was a bad job by John Gruden. I didn't get that at all. I love Gruden. I think he's done a great job with the Raiders. But that was a bad job by him. Some people were getting on Anthony Lynn for his play calling. The guy got the win. Who the hell cares? I mean, the penultimate play of the game where Herbert fumbled the ball into the end zone, it was recovered by one of the Chargers. I thought it was a touchdown. The refs pulled out this weird rule. Inside 2 minutes, only the fumbling player can advance a fumble. I've never heard that before. I'm telling you. These refs make it up as they go. It didn't matter, though. That's the thing. That's why no one's talking about it. Because Herbert snuck in the play after. The Chargers got the win. Be happy that you got the win. Who cares how you got there? You won a close game. It's something that you've struggled with all season. Is Anthony Lynn a great coach? No. But he's not terrible. I do think he gets a bad rap. I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world for the Chargers to bring him back. Will they move on from him? Probably. But it wouldn't knock my socks off if Lynn survived another year. The Chargers have the Broncos and Chiefs to finish out the year. They're going to beat the Broncos, and who knows if the Chiefs are going to have anything to play for. They may decide to rest their guys. If the Chargers finish the year 7-9, I think Lynn is staying. And I don't think that would be a bad move for the Chargers at all. I don't want Lynn as the next head coach of the Jets. I don't think that would work. But for the Chargers, it makes sense. Alright, it's time for me to make my 3 NFL picks. For the first time this year, the NFL is playing on Saturday. I think I heard somewhere that this is the first year in NFL history that they've played on all 7 days of the week. Obviously, Sunday, Monday, Thursday. There was the Bills-Titans game on a Tuesday, where the Titans destroyed the Bills. Steelers-Ravens on a Wednesday. The Steelers narrowly beat the RG3-led Ravens. A week from today, Christmas Day, the Vikings will play the Saints. And obviously the 2 Saturday games this week. So I hope Vikings-Saints doesn't get pushed back. That would be kind of cool to have the NFL play on all 7 days of the week. Like I said, I think that's the first time that's ever happened. Don't quote me on it. But I do have a couple picks for the Saturday games. I like the Bills minus 6.5 over the Broncos. And I like the Packers minus 8.5 over the Panthers. This is a surging Bills team. They're 4-1 in their last 5. Josh Allen right now is probably one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think it was Troy Aikman who said if any team is going to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs before they get to the Super Bowl, it's the Colts. I disagree with that. I think the Bills could give them a run for their money. Allen can do similar things to Mahomes. Their defense is better. There was a report that came out today that the owners of the Bills, Terry and Kim Pegula, are imploring other teams to hire Leslie Frazier as their next head coach. They know he's ready, and they want him to get another chance. That is an incredibly classy move by the Pegulas. When I first saw that headline, I didn't think it would be a good ending, but no, that's a very classy move by the Pegulas. I don't know if Frazier will get another chance. He didn't set the world on fire with the Vikings, but it wouldn't stun me. The Bills' defense has been solid this year, and he does have a ton of experience under his belt. But going back to this game, I just think the Bills are leaps and bounds better than the Broncos. The Broncos have disappointed this year. Drew Lock has not had the sophomore season that I thought he'd have. I understand Cortland Sutton being lost for the year so early can account for some of that. But this Broncos offense has been really, really bad. And their defense hasn't been great either. I think the Bills are going to win by at least a touchdown and an extra point. I like the Bills there. And I think the Packers are going to steamroll the Panthers. We all know how good the Packers are. You don't need me to tell you that. You may need me to tell you how good their defense is. It's probably one of the 10 best defenses in the NFL right now. But this is more on the Panthers. The Panthers got off to a solid start. They started the year 3-2. After that, it's been all downhill. They've lost 7 of their last 8. Their one win was a 20-0 shutout of the bad Detroit Lions. It's been a rough first season for Matt Rule. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next year. Will this be a harbinger of things to come? It wouldn't surprise me if it is. Hopefully this puts to bed any notion of Joe Brady being a head coach next year. If Joe Brady becomes a head coach in the NFL, especially with the Jets, I may lose my mind. The Packers are exponentially better than the Panthers. It's at Lambeau Field. Frontline healthcare workers are going to attend this game. That's a really nice touch by the Packers. Give me the Packers minus 8.5. As for my upset, I like the Cowboys plus 3 over the Niners. As we all know, the issue with the Cowboys is their defense. The Niners don't have the offense capable of really taking advantage of that. No Garoppolo. No Kittle. Mostert's banged up. Their only good pass catcher is Brandon Ayuk. I like Ayuk a lot. I think he's going to be a stud in this league. But he's the only guy who scares me on offense for the Niners. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. You're going to see a bunch of field goals from Robbie Gould and Greg Zuerlein. I'll go crazy. I'll say at least 3 field goals for both of them. But this is a game that I do expect the Cowboys to not just cover the spread on, but win outright. Give me the Cowboys plus 3. So my picks are Bills minus 6.5, Packers minus 8.5, and Cowboys plus 3. Alright, now I'll give you some college football Valk talk because It is here. One of the best days on the football calendar, and that includes the NFL. Conference Championship Saturday. Usually you get fantastic games, and this year will be no exception. There are 5 games that I want to preview, and I'll start with the Big 12 championship game between Oklahoma and ISU. This is a battle of 2 teams with head coaches that, if they want to go to the NFL, they'll have their choice of jobs. Matt Campbell, you get the sense that he's going to leave ISU for the pros. Wouldn't mind him on the Jets at all. And Lincoln Riley is probably my second or third choice for the Jets. Eric Bieniemy is my A1 guy, but I don't know if I'd prefer Lincoln Riley or Dabo Swinney. I've been going back and forth on that for a while. Obviously, I'd be fine with either one. What Riley has done this year with Spencer Rattler, the worst quarterback he's had since he started coaching Oklahoma, is incredible. I mean, realize, Baker Mayfield, Heisman Trophy winner. Kyler Murray, Heisman Trophy winner. Jalen Hurts, not a Heisman Trophy winner, but he did have a great season. Spencer Rattler is exponentially less talented than those 3 guys. And Oklahoma is still 7-2. They have the 7th best offense in the nation in terms of points per game. They're scoring just under 43.5 points per game. Rattler has completed 68.5% of his passes. He's thrown for over 2,500 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. And he's really doing this without much help. TJ Pledger, Ramondre Stevenson, and Seth McGowan aren't setting the world on fire. They're all averaging over 4.7 yards per carry. They're not bad players, but they're not great. And when you look at the pass catchers, Marvin Mims, Theo Weiss, and Austin Stogner are all solid, but again, not great. Give Lincoln Riley a ton of credit for what he's done with this Sooners team. Without question, the worst Sooners team he's ever had. And the fact that this is the worst Sooners team he's had, and they're still playing in the Big 12 title game, says something about how great a coach Riley is. An underrated part of the Sooners this year has been their defense. Isaiah Thomas and Nick Benito are 2 of the best sack artists in the nation. Ronnie Perkins gets his also. Trey Norwood and Trey Brown are excellent defensive backs. Oklahoma this year is only giving up 22 points per game. That's the 29th best mark in the nation. But they're going to have their hands full with the Cyclones. Brock Purdy hasn't had as good a year as Rattler. But in terms of pure talent, I think Purdy's better. He's completed just under 2/3 of his passes for over 2,200 yards. He's thrown 17 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. I like Purdy. I think he's a talented player. But he's not the most talented player that the Cyclones have. It's not even close. It is Breece Hall. One of, if not the best running back in the nation. This guy is averaging over 6 yards a carry. He has 1,357 rushing yards. He has 17 touchdowns. The sky is the limit for this kid. Next year, we may be talking about this guy in the same vein as we talked about Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, and Todd Gurley. How high could this kid go? ISU does have some solid pass catchers. Xavier Hutchinson has had a good season, 50 catches for 612 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Charlie Kolar is one of the best tight ends in the nation. He has 33 catches for 446 yards and 5 touchdowns. When you look at their defense, ISU also has some good sack artists. Will McDonald and Jaquan Bailey both have at least 7 sacks, and Mike Rose has 4 interceptions. It wouldn't stun me if Oklahoma won this game. They do have one of the best coaches in the nation. But I think ISU has the more talented players. I think Purdy is better than Rattler. Breece Hall is better than any running back the Sooners have. Hutchinson and Kolar are better than Mims, Weiss, and Stogner. The duo of McDonald and Bailey is probably better than the duo of Thomas and Benito. I think this game is going to cement Matt Campbell's place as a future NFL head coach. He is ready for that responsibility. Make no mistake about it. Give me the Cyclones. Moving on now to Northwestern OSU. A game that should not be. This game should be Indiana. Shame on the Big Ten for moving back the goalposts so that OSU could sneak into this spot. If I'm Indiana, I'm looking to move from the Big Ten. Is OSU better than Indiana? Yes. No question. But the simple fact is, they didn't play the requisite number of games. That overrides anything else. This is what everyone agreed to. And now you're moving back the benchmarks. It doesn't work for me. This should be Northwestern Indiana. This is a defense-first Wildcats team. Truthfully, it's really not worth talking about their offense. They have no big playmakers there. Peyton Ramsey isn't that good. Neither is Drake Anderson, Isaiah Bowser, Kyrick McGowan, or Ramad Bowman. This is a Wildcats team that wins because of their defense. Andrew Leota, Blake Gallagher, Cameron Ruiz, and Adetomiwa Adebaware are really good pass rushers. And Brandon Joseph is one of the better defensive backs in the nation. They're going to make Justin Fields work for this. As great as Fields is, and he will be the second overall pick, this won't be a cakewalk. The thing that I would do if I was Pat Fitzgerald is I'd put Joseph on either Wilson or Olave one-on-one. He can hold his own there. Whoever the other guy is, I double him with safety help. Make Fields throw the ball to a guy like Jameson Williams or Jeremy Ruckert. A guy like that. I trust my front seven enough to stop the Buckeyes running game of Master Teague, Trey Sermon, and Fields. He can run. We forget that. The guy has 5 rushing touchdowns this year. I wouldn't blitz Cameron Ruiz a lot. He's a defensive back. Keep him in the secondary. OSU's defense is going to have an easy game here. Tommy Togier, Zach Harrison, and Sean Wade are all gonna feast here. Again, Northwestern doesn't have a good offense. This is gonna be a really good game. OSU is a 21-point favorite. Give me Northwestern. It's not out of the realm of possibility that the Wildcats could win this game. But ultimately, the Buckeyes are more talented. They will find a way to win this game. It will be close. It won't be a blowout. But OSU will win. Moving on now to the game of the week. A game that we saw before, but not really, because one of those teams was missing their best player. Of course, you know what I'm talking about. Clemson, Notre Dame. I was watching on November 7th when the Fighting Irish won that epic game over the DJ Uiagalelei-led Tigers. I was watching the fans rush the field afterwards. I didn't think that was very wise. But this is it. This is the battle that we all want. This is the real Clemson. With Trevor Lawrence back under center, this could be the best college football game of the year. Firstly, let me say this. If Clemson wins this game, and OSU wins their game, OSU needs to face Clemson. I don't want a third Clemson-Notre Dame game. Twice is too much, to tell you the truth, but I can live with that. I don't want to see Clemson-Notre Dame for the third time. I'd love to see Clemson-OSU. Trevor Lawrence versus Justin Fields. The presumptive first 2 picks in the 2021 draft. That would be epic. If Trevor Lawrence dominates in this game, and yeah, I'm saying if, because he wasn't great against Virginia Tech a couple weeks ago, it'll shut all the Jets fans up who were saying that they should give Darnold one more year. trade down from that first overall spot. No. First up, I would take Lawrence regardless of what happens here, but if Lawrence dominates here, it just further carves in stone the fact that this is the best quarterback prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck. The guy's completed just over 69% of his passes. He'll throw for over 2,500 yards on the year, 20 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. He also has 6 rushing touchdowns. I know this is a lot to put on a rookie. More than that, someone who's not even in the NFL yet, but I'm going to say it. I truly believe that Trevor Lawrence will save the New York Jets. I do believe that he will win multiple Super Bowls with the Jets. I do believe that he will be a perennial Pro Bowler. I do believe that he will be the best quarterback in Jets history when we look at the Jets 30 years from now. The pain and suffering that we've undergone this year as Jets fans will be all worth it when we see Roger Goodell and Trevor Lawrence hold up that green jersey with Lawrence 1 on it. Does he have some help at Clemson? Yeah, he has some help. Travis Etienne is one of the best running backs in the nation. He has over 1,200 scrimmage yards this year and 14 total touchdowns. In fact, there are some people saying that with the Seahawks first rounder that the Jets got in the Jamal Adams trade, they'll take Etienne. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I do believe in taking running backs in the first round if the situation calls for it. But I don't want to say definitively that I want Etienne with the Jets. Let's see how the offseason unfolds before we get there. Lawrence does everything great, but one thing that he doesn't get enough credit for is how he spreads the ball around. 8 Tigers have at least 14 catches this year. Amari Rodgers, Cornell Powell, a really, really good wide receiver duo, Etienne, Braden Galloway, a really talented tight end, Frank Ladson Jr., E.J. Williams, Davis Allen, and Brandon Spector. You don't know who to key in on. Defensively, Clemson has 11 players with multiple sacks this year. They have 7 with at least 3 sacks. You never know where the pass rush is going to come from. It was very surprising to me that the Clemson-Notre Dame game last month was such a shootout. I did think it was going to be lower scoring. The Clemson secondary is really talented. Nolan Turner, Mario Goodrich, Andrew Booth, and Mike Jones Jr. are all very talented. Dabo Swinney, if he decides he wants to go to the NFL, I don't see him going anywhere except the Jets and Texans. If he doesn't have a Clemson quarterback, I don't see him leaving. I think coaching Lawrence and possibly Etienne in New York would be very appealing to him. Same thing with going to Houston and coaching Deshaun Watson once again. That's it. Those are the only two situations I see him leaving for. It would take a Godfather offer also, but I don't see him going to a team like the Lions or the Jaguars or the Falcons. It's either going to be the Jets, the Texans, or Clemson. When you look at Notre Dame, they are incredibly well-rounded. Ian Book is a very safe quarterback. He's not electric, you don't love watching him play, but he's solid. He's completed 63% of his passes for over 2,300 yards, 15 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He can also run. He has 8 rushing touchdowns this year. It wouldn't surprise me if he became a long-term backup quarterback in the NFL. Buck does have talent. When you look at his supporting cast, Kyron Williams is one of the most underrated players in the nation. He has over 1,000 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. I like how Book spreads the ball around. Javon McKinley, Ben Skowronek, Michael Mayer, Avery Davis, Williams, and Tommy Tremble are all really good pass catchers. Defensively, Notre Dame is incredibly talented. Adedokunbo Ogundeji, Isaiah Foskey, Dalen Hayes, Myron Tagovailoa Amosa, Sean Crawford, Kurt Hinish, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Ovio Gofo. They can all get to the quarterback. They're very athletic. They're really, really talented. This is the game of the year, make no mistake about it. At least it will be until we get to the CFP. Ultimately, I don't see Notre Dame beating Clemson twice. That's a really tough ask for any team to beat this Clemson team twice. I'm going to be very interested in what Trevor Lawrence does. Obviously, I'm going to be locked into this game. I'm certainly going to be rooting for Clemson, for the Lawrence connection, and because I hate Notre Dame. Give me Clemson. Moving on now to the last conference championship game that features a team that, if the season ended today, would be in the CFP. That is Alabama, Florida. It's really incredible when you stop and think about it, what Alabama's done. They lose Tua Tagovailoa, one of the most successful quarterbacks in the history of Crimson Tide football. You'd think they'd take a step back, but this is what Alabama does. They just constantly reload and reload and reload. Mac Jones is getting Heisman Trophy buzz. He has completed 76.5% of his passes for over 3,300 yards. He has thrown 27 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. There is talk that he could go late in the first round. This is a guy who was off the radar of NFL teams just a year and a half ago. His supporting cast is fantastic. Najee Harris is one of the best running backs in the nation. He has over 1,000 rushing yards and 22 touchdowns. Jalen Waddle got hurt. out for the year. You'd think that would hurt Alabama. Nope. Devontae Smith and John Mechie immediately step up. Their defense is stacked. Christian Barmore, Will Anderson Jr., Christopher Allen, Malachi Moore, Daniel Wright, and Patrick Surtain II are all incredibly talented. Surtain is probably going to be a top 5 draft pick. Nick Saban, year after year after year, continues to outdo himself. When you look at the Gators, they have another quarterback who could win the Heisman Trophy. Kyle Trask. He's completed over 70% of his passes for over 3,700 yards. He's thrown 40 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions. I'll tell you this, as an NFL prospect, I like Trask more than Jones. Jones is being helped a lot because he's at Alabama. He has Saban, he has Harris, he has Smith, he has Waddle, he has Mechie. Trask doesn't have anyone of that caliber. Dan Mullen is a really good head coach, but he's not Nick Saban. The Gators' running game is non-existent. Their pass catchers are good. Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts, Trayvon Grimes, Jacob Copeland, Malik Davis, and Justin Shorter are all very talented. But I'll take Smith and Mechie over any of those guys. Maybe Toney over Mechie, now that I'm really thinking about it. Maybe I'll take Toney over Mechie, but it's close. It's closer than you think. Kyle Pitts is better than any Alabama tight end. I think Pitts is going to have a very long NFL career. The Gators do have a good defense. Zachary Carter, Ventrell Miller, Brenton Cox, Chris Bogle, Sean Davis, and Kaiir Elam are all very, very talented. Ultimately, though, I just think Alabama is the better team. They just have the better pieces. Saban's better than Mullen. Harris is better than any Gators running back. Devontae Smith is better than any Gators pass catcher. The Crimson Tide defense is leaps and bounds better than the Gators defense. Give me Alabama. The last game to talk about is Tulsa versus Cincinnati. If you haven't seen the Golden Hurricane this year, they're very similar to Northwestern. All defense, no offense. Give Philip Montgomery credit for what he's done this year. His first couple years with Tulsa, they were solid. They had a rough patch the 3 years after that. But this year, they're a solid team. They don't have any great offensive pieces. Zach Smith isn't that good. Their running game is non-existent. Their pass catchers aren't that good. Like I said, they're all defense. Zaven Collins is one of the best defensive players in the nation. He has had an outstanding junior season. No one was paying any attention to this guy his freshman and sophomore years. As a junior, he has 4 sacks and 4 interceptions. 2 of them he's returned to the house. He has 2 pass deflections, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 forced fumbles. If this guy declares for the NFL draft, he will be a day 3 pick. Other than him, the Golden Hurricane are stacked. Jackson Player, Anthony Goodlow, Grant Sawyer, Justin Wright, Trayvon Reeves, Robert Revels III, and Cullen Wick are all really talented players. So are guys like Tyneil Martin and Kendaren Ray. It doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but they're really good defensive backs. It's going to be tough for Cincinnati to take advantage of that. Desmond Ridder is a solid dual-threat quarterback. He's completed 2/3 of his passes this year, 16 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He's only thrown over 1,800 yards, but he has 11 rushing touchdowns. I'll take that. Him and Jared Dokes, very talented runners. Jerome Ford, too, is no slouch. The thing that Luke Fickell has done for the Bearcats that I really like is he's made it so you don't know who to key in on as a defensive coordinator. Guys like Jason Jackson, Josh Weil, Michael Young, Trey Tucker, and Dokes are all capable of killing you as pass catchers. Myjai Sanders is a very athletic defensive end, can deflect passes, and get sacks. Cincinnati's defense, though, is anchored by their secondary. Kobe Bryant and Ahmad Gardner are probably the best cornerback duo in the conference. I don't know about the nation, but it's close. I would really need to think about it, but it's close. Derek Forrest, Arquan Bush, Jarrell White, Darian Beavers, and James Wiggins also deserve to be mentioned. This is a stacked Cincinnati defense. They neutralized Tulsa's defense. The Bearcats are going to win this game. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Alright, now I'll give you some college basketball Valk talk. And I'll start with Kansas narrowly beating Texas Tech 58-57. I told you, don't be surprised if Kansas wins this game. I did pick Texas Tech, but Kansas winning didn't knock my socks off. The reality is, this is an incredibly talented Kansas team, and they won this game with Jalen Wilson no-showing. Wilson only attempted 4 field goals the whole game. He had just 7 points. The reason Kansas won was because Okai Agbaji was fantastic. He had 23 points. Marcus Garrett had a double-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds, and Christian Braun had 10 rebounds. Here's what makes that all the more impressive. Garrett is 6'5", and Braun is 6'6". This was a battle of small ball. A couple guys really disappointed me for Texas Tech. Marcus Santos Silva, I expected to dominate on the interior. He really didn't. He only had 5 rebounds and 2 blocks. I understand that Kansas was shooting a lot of threes, but I just wanted Santos Silva to have more of an impact. Kyler Edwards also no-showed. He played 37 minutes. He went 0 for 5 from beyond the arc and 0 for 9 from the field. If he hits just one more shot, Texas Tech wins. give McClung and Shannon credit. They both had 20 points. But ultimately, Texas Tech just didn't execute the way you need to beat Kansas. You've got to play an almost perfect game to beat this Kansas team. This is a very scary Kansas team. This is a Kansas team that could very easily win the whole thing. If I had to make a pick right now, I'd be hard-pressed to pick against Kansas. Like I said, you need to play a perfect game to beat them. Texas Tech was perfect defensively. They limited Kansas to just 58 points. But Kansas' defense was stifling. They neutralized Santos Silva. They neutralized Edwards. This is a great Kansas team. I can say with confidence that they're going to make the Final Four. Moving on now to Gonzaga, Iowa. Number 1 versus number 3. We were deprived of Gonzaga Baylor a couple weeks ago. Now we're getting Gonzaga, Iowa. That's a damn good consolation prize. It's going to be very interesting how Gonzaga plays in this game, seeing as though they haven't played since the 2nd. I mean, this is a great Gonzaga team. This may be the best Gonzaga team in their program's history. They are stacked offensively. Drew Timme, Corey Kispert, Joel Ayayi, Jalen Suggs, and Andrew Nemhard are all averaging over 11 points per game. They don't play any defense. Iowa is going to go off in this game, but Gonzaga will be able to match them. Is Luka Garza going to drop 30, 35, maybe even 40 points? Probably. Will Joe Wieskamp shoot the lights out? Probably. Will Jack Nunge get his coming off the bench? Probably. It wouldn't surprise me if these teams combined for over 200 points. We may have an NBA-type score here. All in all, I think the layoff is really going to hurt Gonzaga. Luka Garza is the best player in this game. And I think he's going to be a very high draft pick in 2021. How about them Hawks? Moving on now to Louisville, Wisconsin. When you look at Louisville, their stats don't tell the story. They are a very well-rounded team. Carlick Jones, Dre Davis, David Johnson, Jalen Withers, and Samuel Williamson are all really gifted offensively. Johnson is really good defensively also. But this is a Louisville team that can win high-scoring games. That's not how Wisconsin plays, though. They're a defense-first team. Do they have guys that can score? Yes. Micah Potter, Demetric Trice, Nate Ruvers, and Brad Davison are all averaging over 10 points per game. But guys like Trice, Davison, and Tyler Wall are all gifted defensively. Can Louisville win a high-scoring game? The answer is yes. But their offense isn't good enough to beat this really, really good Badgers defense. I like the Cardinals. I like what Chris Mack has done with them. One of the better head coaches in the nation. But give me Greg Gard's team. I'm going to go with Wisconsin. The last game to talk about features Illinois going up against Rutgers. I've talked about Illinois a lot. I really like them this year. They're really, really talented. Ayo Dosunmu is one of the best players in the nation. Kofi Coburn is really, really talented. He's averaging 16.7 points per game this year to go along with just under 9.5 rebounds per game. Adam Miller and Andre Curbelo will always get theirs. Curbelo off the bench has proven to be very difficult for any team to defend. When Brad Underwood puts his subs in, you don't think about guarding him. Curbelo can go off. I like him. This is a very, very good Illinois team. But Rutgers is good too. Ron Harper is averaging 23 points per game this year. He looks like his namesake out there. Jacob Young, Montez Mathis, and Miles Johnson are all really good secondary pieces. This is a good Rutgers team. They are very well-rounded. While they shouldn't be in the Big Ten for football, this year, I don't mind them being there for basketball. Give Steve Picciel a ton of credit for what he's done with the Scarlet Knights this year. Ultimately, though, they're not as good as Illinois. They're just not as talented. Dosunmu is better than Harper. Coburn is better than any supporting member of Rutgers. Underwood is better than Picciel. Give me the Illini. Short week next week, but a lot to talk about. New York Jets recap comes your way after they get absolutely eviscerated by the Rams. You're only going to get shows Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. I'm going to take Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off, but you're going to get a lot those days. Monday afternoon, regular episode of The Jacob Valk Show. Monday evening, Brooklyn Nets season preview. Tuesday morning, NBA preview. I'm going to go team by team, breaking down where I think they're going to finish in the standings, and I'm going to give you my NBA Finals pick. Tuesday afternoon, regular episode of The Jacob Valk Show. Wednesday, only one show. The regular episode of The Jacob Valk Show. There's going to be a lot of football to talk about, a lot of basketball to talk about. I love it. Sports are back. Let's never go through what we went through in the spring again. Also, I'll go through the other important dates. You're still going to get New York Jets recaps. I only have 3 more to go, thank God. If I knew they were going to be this bad, I wouldn't have said I was going to do them this year. No show New Year's Eve, no show New Year's Day. January 4th, a lot of shows. In the morning, Brooklyn Nets. In the afternoon, regular episode of The Jacob Valk Show. Probably going to be a big Black Monday recap. There will be some other stuff there also. In the evening, New York Jets off-season preview. I've had more time to think about that than I wish I had. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that I'd rather ride the buses in AAA than be a lawyer.